You are watching The New American Media.
You are listening to the Agree to Disagree program on thenewamericanmedia.com.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Thank you very much for sticking with us as we made the transition from our Unhappy Hour sports show talking about LeBron James winning his first championship, not with the Cleveland Cavaliers, as all of us Cleveland fans would have hoped, but with the Miami Heat. It's been a little rough. But we are making the transition. We are moving on. That's all you can do sometimes. So I think the best thing to do is to move on here. We are going to be communicating with Saturday night host of Coast to Coast AM, John B. Wells. He's also filled in for Alex Jones. He is one of the favorite new voices out there in the liberty movement, just trying to find some constitutional sanity in this world. We're going to reach out to him now.
Hello.
Hello, John. This is Brian with the NewAmericanMedia.com's Agree to Disagree program. You are live on the air, sir. Welcome to the program again. How are you doing today?
Well, it's good to be back with you. How are you? I'm fine.
No, we're living the dream. You know, despite the fact that you're talking to a big Cleveland sports fan who had to watch LeBron James get his first championship in another city, I'm doing well, all things considered. Yourself?
Well, best not to get too upset about these things. You know, they all move around sooner or later. As a matter of fact, I remember the entire city of Dallas grew bored when the Cowboys did 2 consecutive Super Bowls. So don't let it exercise you.
Well, I appreciate the kind words. You know what I noticed yesterday? A little bit of the anger, a little bit of the hate. They're not quite the accurate words because it's not pure anger and pure hate. You know, you don't really want to see something bad happen. But, you know, that frustrated emotion gave way to more sadness, grief, and depression. And it's the stages of grief, though. I think we're moving right along here. I think.
Well, you know, go ahead and do your grieving and then get over it.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm over it now because the reason we split this show up here at the NewAmericanMedia.com is because sometimes we like being distracted with sports and shiny things and cakes and circuses, and then sometimes we got to get down to the nitty-gritty of life, what's important, what we wish our friends and family were paying attention to, and that's why we're bringing you back onto the program. John, we saw recently you were able to, I guess it wouldn't be called co-hosting, it was guest hosting for Alex Jones on his radio program, and I don't know if our listeners had a chance to check that out, but I was wondering if you could kind of explain that experience.
Well, it was very interesting but at first I thought, oh boy, video too? And then it'll wind up on YouTube, and it'll be there forever.
Forever.
So, I thought that it would be an hour, but Alex said, no, just do the whole thing. And I went, okay.
Sure thing.
Well, call these people. I would like to talk to them on the program. So his man Richard gave him a call, and we got him on the program. So I spent an hour with Craig Hewlett, who's, as you may know, is a geopolitical strategist. He's advised several of the security services and so forth, and just generally a rational and grumpy man that just tells it like it is, and names and points fingers, and occasionally even calls names. I like him. And then Alex was in the second hour, and then Dr. Teresa Dale, who was she has a naturopathic clinic out in California. She is I would say a victim, I suppose, of radiation poisoning. She was in Europe when the Chernobyl meltdown occurred, and actually suffered from radiation sickness and managed to clear herself through a variety of homeopathic techniques. So she now helps other people to do it, and you know, just tries to enhance the body's defenses against this continual invasion and ever increasing of things like cesium-134 and 137.
Well, I'll tell you what, this is a good time to mention that you also run a website, caravantomidnight.com, and on that site you guys have little handheld devices that you can take around so that you can determine if your produce, your meat, your cheese, the products that you're purchasing in any store may have been have accumulated nuclear material. Talk to everybody a little bit about that, because on one hand, it's like you could look at some of the people on TV and radio and say, well, they're selling gold and silver because they're fear mongers. Look, they're just shills for the corporations. That's why they do it. Or you could look at it and say, no, they legitimately believe the dollar is crashing, and they're also trying to pay their bills by warning others. And I think you're one of the people that just is rationally taking a look at Fukushima and the risk of dirty bombs and nuclear fallout in this country. So maybe talk about your website for a second.
Well, I'd be happy to. I put that site together after I went to my mad scientist laboratory. All 4,900 square feet of it, just everything in the world is there, left over from several decades ago. Some of it quite useful. And I was looking at my Geiger counter, and when I found it, it worked, but the batteries aren't commonly stocked, and they're expensive, and it's huge. So I thought there's got to be a little bit better way to do this. So I did several weeks of investigation, then partnered with some people in Western Europe, who partnered with some people in Eastern Europe, and then before it was all over with, Vince Mazer from Colorado, who builds his own very nice radiation monitor that can be left on all the time, and it actually tracks the ups and downs. You preset the time you want it to measure the samples, and it does. And this stuff is reasonably priced. I thought, you know what? You can't get one of these. They're out of them now.
They don't have those at Walmart. You can't get those at Ace Hardware or at Walmart, or they're just not at the corner store.
No, most people don't even think about it.
No.
I'll give you an example, Brian. In Central Texas, there was so much radium in the water. This is a year old. This story is a year old, so it's still going on now and had been going on for years. It actually turned their water pipes radioactive. This guy was saying in a video from Channel 11 in Houston that, when it hits a 6, I turn away from it. It's like a 6? That's radioactive, pal. You're doing the right thing by turning away from it. So to cut a long story short, Caravan to Midnight, whatever we make on the product, we buy more product because we think the more product that's out there, the better it is for people. And then we partnered with some water purification people, which by all accounts is the best way to get any radioactive particles out of your water is with a good old RO system. And then when you change the filters, wave your Geiger counter around that, and you can see whether or not it's picking up stuff. But we just buy more product for people, and we don't, we're not trying to get rich. We're just trying to get it going on and get as much stuff out there to people as possible. That's really true.
We're talking with John B. Wells, Saturday night host of Coast to Coast AM. John, you mentioned one of the on the Experience co-hosting or guest hosting the Alex Jones program that you spoke with someone who is rational and grumpy. I jotted that down, and I wanted to bring that up because, in your opinion, do you think anyone who is moderately intelligent, moderately curious, and proactive in trying to seek out some news stories of their own and do some thinking, do you think anyone that's digging into what's happening on this planet in a rational way would end up being grumpy about that? Is there anything to be positive about?
That's an excellent question, and I can only give you a resounding yes. In fact, not only is it easy to get grumpy when you go down the information mind shaft, but it's really hard not to become grumpy when you begin to see, to use that unfortunate expression, when you begin to see the dots being connected between these regimes. And we'll get to Eric Holder in a minute, but he was part of the Clinton outfit when all this Oklahoma City thing happens. And all this information comes out through a Freedom of Information request that ties him to the bombing, just like he's being tied to the Fast and Furious. So after a while, you begin to get the idea that maybe this is just an ongoing thing. I mean, it really just, you notice that no matter what happens in or to the world, at least so far, the program just keeps going. It doesn't matter if it's a world war. The bankers who were the bankers before are still making the bullets and the bandages, and it just keeps going. It takes different forms as far as what we're seeing, but the show is exactly the same. It's the same movie. Wow. It's just they decided to change it from a cowboy setting to a circus setting. Oh, and then we'll do a battlefield. Now let's be pirates. So, the costuming and the sets are different, but it's the same play.
When do we go to space? When are we going into outer space, John?
Well, clearly, it's going commercial.
That is true. And are you excited about that?
I really am, because first of all, I never really understood why they took it away from the Air Force and gave it to NASA, which tells me, after I thought about it long enough, that they really didn't. Which is why we have a United States Space Command.
Okay.
You know what I mean? It's like the Air Force was not going to get involved in stuff that was going to be on view for the public, because that way they couldn't do the things that they do. And without a doubt, the Air Force does the creepiest and strangest and most wonderful stuff all rolled into one. So they can keep all of that separate from the officially recognized space program. I frankly don't think that the Air Force was ever cut out of the space program. I just think they get all the great stuff that we don't ever see.
Well, I'll tell you what, John, you're touching on a couple of neat points here between NASA, between Fukushima, the Bilderberg event. We haven't even really given an overview on that, and I think you're in a unique position to just kind of update us on what Alex found out there, and I think that would be great. And then we want to dig into Eric Holder. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to pause for a brief station identification here on the TNAM radio network. My name is Brian Engelman. This is the Agree to Disagree program, and we are joined with our special guest, John B. Wells, Saturday night host of Coast to Coast AM, and special co-host, guest host of Alex Jones' radio program. We'll be right back in a second on the other side.
You are listening to the Agree to Disagree program on thenewamericanmedia.com.
All right, if you haven't done this already, we need you to do this. Go on to youtube.com/thenewamericanmedia and subscribe to our page. That way you get an update every time we post a new radio show, every time we get another interview, every time we're doing something interesting, you're reminded that, hey, I like those people at the New American Media. So go on youtube.com/thenewamericanmedia and hit subscribe. We will greatly appreciate that.